because it's the silly, stupid, fascinating, weird, wonderful. They're my people, and more often than not, they're the geeky people as well.
I mentioned Betamax. For anybody older, that's the old version of a video cassette. A video cassette is an old version of a DVD. A DVD is not set on the cloud.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How's everyone doing?
This is the awkward thing, isn't it? We now have silence while we wait for people to type their answers.
It's fine.
Hello and good evening.
We can be awkward. Hi, I am not Mark.
You are not Mark. This is good. I think we've hit a deep note already of the evening.
Hi, for those who don't know, hi, I'm Tim. I'm the resident geek that's always around.
It's true. You're like our Alexa. Could you answer the question? Oh no, not this.
No,
Alexa.
no, not now. Later.
Alexa, stop. And I'm Becca, with no designated role at all, other than to be total prat.
Oh dear. How have you been, Becca?
Welcome to our so far one viewer. We know that more of you will join us live, will join us on podcast, on Facebook. If you are watching or listening, it is a delight that you have joined us this evening. As you can see or hear, we do have very lovely Tim with us, who will no doubt steer the direction into the deep swirling vortex of geeky knowledge. And we have also a delightful guest who will be taking us into the geeky world of sports journalism and statistics and watching sports and stuff like that.
Oh, we could have cosplayed as like sports commentators this week.
We could have done.
You could
I
have been
feel
really
a moustache would have gone down well.
I was about to say Des Lynam's like the go-to person, isn't it? What's the other one? The
I could pull that off.
What was her name with the Wimbledon commentator? Always had like a Rice Krispie on her face microphone.
How you see that? You see, I see that as the Madonna microphone.
No. Because the BBC had like a Rice Krispie one, which is like a thin wire that went along the jawline, so it looked like they had like a Rice Krispie. So they didn't have the Madonna ones.
So I'm slightly hungry now. I could go for a bowl of Rice Krispies.
Anyway, Sue Barker, that's it.
Sue Barker. You see, this is what we wait for. That pause is exactly what we wait for when Tim joins in. Anyway, so our perennial, is it a perennial question that keeps coming back every week?
The eternal question we scream into the void every single week, that we ask ourselves every night when we're looking at all our unpainted minis, or the yarn that is yet to be stitched, or the books that we have not yet read that should be on the ever-growing pile of to-be-read books.
These abandoned hobbies. Ah, yes, I've discovered a new one.
So what geeky things have you been up to since last we gathered? I mean, we know Tom, bless him, is still sat at home painting once again. As we shall see, spoilers for later, more painting from Tom, which would be amazing.
Tom. And we've got a delightful hello from Stephen Jones.
Hello, Stephen Jones.
Hello, Stephen Jones. I have got my I've got my photos in Geeky Gallery from my Saturday trip to World of what world do I keep saying? Warcraft.
The other one.
Warcraft. That's where I went.
No, the other one. The other
one, Warhammer.
Yeah,
and I have been continuing with my binge watching of Lost, only I have added a layer to that by also playing Myths of Legend. So At the moment, I am stuck on what looks like a tropical beach, but every time I go in the water to go and get more resources, which is the inevitable outcome of the way I play these games, I'm just freezing. So I need to figure out how to get sufficient resources to move to put some more clothes on, really. Although that
Yeah.
might just be a fashion choice. And also to make alcohol, which would allow me to stay warm.
Surely, if you want to go into the sea, you should get some kind of animal fat.
No, it says what you need is alcohol to protect you from the cold.
That was a coding
Home
choice by the
Methodist
developers.
invented this game.
Ooh. Steve Jones has said, my boss asked me to dispose of some old computer equipment. Naturally, I need to open it up to see what bits I can scavenge for possible. Yes! Reduce, reuse, recycle for future PC builds.
That's right. Geeks leading the way in eco-environmental approaches.
Now, that was a video during lockdown that I did watch a few times, was Henry Cavill live stream building his PC over a long period of time.
Have
you not?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I could fall down that rabbit hole.
But then it was the same, I think a week later, the video came out of him going to Warhammer World, where you had just been.
Oh,
Because every question he gets in interviews now, no matter what junket he's doing, is someone has to ask him a Warhammer question. Because he's like, ooh, yes, let's answer that. Let's go. That's kind of his response.
excellent.
But
What
geeky
geeky
thing,
things have you been up to, Tim?
what have I?
Narrow it down to 2. You may name 2.
Well, that's fine. I have been continuing the staggered release watching of Arcane Season 2.
Oh, I need to wait for my partner to catch up on Arcane 1 before I can do it.
Do it. I am glad I do not have buyer's remorse for buying the Arcane artwork from Comic-Con. Yeah, one of the artwork I got was from Comic-Con was about Arcane.
I did not know this. You did not give me a tour of your artwork.
It's
because there was so much of it.
There was so much. It's that one right there. For those on the podcast, I'm pointing to a barely able to be seen photo / art print of the artwork. I will send you it later.
Can we please? Yes. Can I demand it goes onto Discord, please? So
I will, of course, do like a full gallery tour of all the artwork that I bought from
Yes, please, and then we can do it. Are we allowed to then show it on Geeky Gallery? Does that count as?
Yeah, we can just do like a Christmas montage.
A Christmas montage of gifts that you have bought yourself. Are they gifts for other people? Would it be a?
No, remember I bought the majority of the artwork I bought was for my partner, and
Okay.
I bought a small amount for myself. But no, she's like a Geeky Gallery Christmas Yule log. It's like Christmas music in the background of all the Geeky Gallery from the entire year.
Oh yes, let's do that. That's a nice idea.
And the other geeky thing I did was I ran D&D like I do every couple of weeks.
For those that don't play D&D, can you explain what you mean by you ran it?
For those that do not run, I was the dungeon master or game master, depending on your parlance. And I basically just ran people through a game. So my players have now escaped a city where they were falsely accused by creatures they had unalived of basically being terrorists. So they're now running away from a city as quickly as possible.
And so is that like the end of a chapter? Is that how does that work?
Kind of. Basically, my players got to a point where they had analysis paralysis on their choices, so they had no idea what they wanted to do. So I asked them a question in our Discord and went, "Hey, what do you want to do next?" And they were all like, "We don't really know what we want to do." I'm like, "Right, I'm going to make a decision for you in the interest of good storytelling."
Okay.
So they're all on the way to the next part of their story. Which
good.
is, in fact, actually picking up
isn't that
story
the
threads.
role of a good game
There's a really good description of what good storytelling is in tabletop role playing, which is the idea of you have 2 roles as a dungeon master, game master, in which you are basically your players are like water rolling down a mountain. Water wants to go the quickest way down, but so your characters that your players are playing want to go down the quickest possible route.
They want to win, defeat, come out.
Yes, they want to go the quickest way down with the path of less resistance. But as players, they want the best narrative story. So it's how to combine getting from A to B really quickly as characters with weaving a good story.
Nice. I like that. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Shall we bring on our geeky guest?
Let's bring on our geeky guest.
I don't think we
need like the microphone.
Our geeky guest.
We need like a microphone descending from the sky for this moment, I think.
Oh, that was way.
It's Cameron. Hi.
Welcome, Cameron. Cameron, what has made you worthy of being nominated as our geeky sports spokesperson this week? If you could introduce yourself with that in mind, what makes you a geeky sporty person?
I think in terms of right now, I mean, I've come on here. I got in about 20 minutes ago from a track session that I was just doing because I love running, and my heart rate is still at 90 beats per minute because I've just been running. It's in terms of that's how recent my most recent sport was. But then more generally, as you well know, Becca, me and Becca work together joyfully. I very much love sport. It's the thing that, well, it's not quite what gets me up in the morning. Other things get me up. But for a very, very long time, sport has been both my favourite pastime in terms of doing it. I love doing sport whenever I can. But also I'm a relentless consumer, devourer of watching and consuming all the sport I can whenever I can. Be that football, tennis, American football recently I'm into as well. But yeah, whenever I can get my hands on or eyes on most of the time, I'll do it.
Fabulous, and I think that's one of those things. I don't know if we have a litmus test of what makes someone a geeky person, but that kind of willingness to pursue the information, to be super curious, to kind of delve into the wonder, and be willing to go, well, why is this fun? So to find a new sport that you're passionate about. I'd imagine, is there any sport, we'll ask you more questions in a bit, we'll do news and quiz in a minute. Is there any sport that you really can't stand watching, or that you'd just rather not watch?
I've never been able to get into rugby. I don't really know why. In terms of like the major sports, I like most of them, but for some reason, I think that's partly a personal connection thing. I've got no like really good friends who love it. I've not got a team that I've ever got into. I think I probably could get invested in rugby under the right circumstances, but in terms of my passive watching of it, I've never quite got it. Whereas most formats, most sports, I can see why people love them. So that's the.
So if you're watching and you are a keen rugby consumer, as Cameron puts it, you have a while now to come up with your argument about why Cameron should now delve down the rabbit hole of rugby fandom. In the meantime, Tim, do you have anything burning to ask, or are you going to sit on it until we properly interview?
Oh, yes. Which American football team would you say you are a keen follower of? I won't say fan because it depends.
Yeah, so the Atlanta Falcons, I've searched for some kind of sporting clothing today. Right. So I've got my Atlanta Falcons hoodie on. I've been supporting them for about 3 years now. I decided to get into American football, and I think we can get into this later, but it's the first time that I didn't have, in terms of a team that I support, that I don't have a personal connection with. And that was a fun period of like, I get to choose who I support. I can start from scratch without being geographically limited.
The hoodie I am wearing is the St. Louis Blues, which is the hockey team. But also, if there is an American football team I support, it is the Chiefs. only because I now have a
As a
personal
glory
connection.
hunter, or yeah.
Personal connection. I moved to
Yeah.
Missouri, and my son was born in Missouri, so technically that is his home team. So we got a decent football team. We won lots of trophies in the time that we were there. We won. He's got a good hockey team. We won a lot of trophies by the time we were there. Less said about baseball, but we can give that a pass.
So for those people that are geeky, but for you, sports sends a shiver down your spine of whatever that may be, fear, revulsion, terror. This is the deep dive. This is one of the things that we do on Faith and Geekery. That there is your geekery may not be my geekery, but we're going to practice the art of being really curious, of leaning into Cameron's passion about it. So we're really grateful that Cam's willing to come and do that and talk about what makes his soul sing when it comes to sport. In the meantime, Tim is going to give us some geeky news, so I will bring it in with the intro.
Geeky news. So, geeky news. If you could throw up those slides for me, Becca.
Let me do that. Oh, they're all over the place.
Geeky news. So, geeky news for those that have not seen within the last week. Marvel's final season of What If, the first and trailer came out, and this is going to come out, I think, the same as last year, where they did an episode a day leading up to Christmas and post-Christmas. This is the final season, so it's the culmination of all those stories. But since the last time they did this, they've had lots of new IPs, such as the Red Guardian, played by David Harbour, Agatha, who is pictured there in the glorious ensemble that she has from Agatha.
Nice, that's a cosplay for next year.
Oh, you want to go as Winter Soldier?
Not Winter Soldier.
But they also brought in Moon Knight in the trailer as well, and they brought in some new stuff which hasn't been released yet. That will start airing on the 22nd of December on Disney Plus, and only on Disney Plus, because Disney has monopoly on lots of things. But for those that do not have the monopoly of going to Disney Plus, do not worry, because our homegrown Taskmaster Junior started this last week. Don't worry, Taskmaster season, I think they're on 17 or 18 now. Just finished last week. I won't spoil who won it, but the junior one just started, with past winner being the Taskmaster now, Rose Matafeo, with the Taskmaster's assistant there with the best face ever, Mike Wozniak, who was an absolute treat during his season, which I believe was season 13 or 14. That is now happening, and they also announced, yesterday, who the Taskmaster's New Year's treat cast is going to be, which includes the likes of Professor Hannah Fry, Martin Lewis, Sue Johnson, David James, who is correct me if I'm wrong, Cameron, was he an England goalkeeper at one point?
England goalkeeper, yeah.
England goalkeeper. Yes, I know some sports. And someone who was in All Saints. I can't remember her name, but I just think it's a very good reference because they mentioned All Saints in Gavin and Stacey, which is the Christmas special airing at 8:30 this Christmas Day. But
you just packing in the geeky news.
Oh, I am. Don't worry, it's about to ramp it up, because last week the first images of How to Train Your Dragon, the live-action remake, started airing. And, friends, hot off the geeky presses, 1 hour and 19 minutes ago, the trailer dropped for it. Spoilers, it's exactly the same as the animated movie from 2010. But it's now live action. There's only one member of the original cast reprising their role, and that is Gerard Butler as Stoic the Vast. But it looks pretty good. There was a bit of discourse in the Discord. You should join it, by the way, if you are a streamer or podcaster. Come and join us on Faith and Geekery Discord to get these kind of insights during the week. Around the remakes, this is a live action remake. Disney weren't the only ones who can get on it. So DreamWorks have started. So I suspect, other DreamWorks properties they could remake. Shrek. Minions. And if they want to go a deep dive and good deep cuts, Prince of Egypt. Let's get some Moses in this. And fun fact about Moses. People working on the Prince of Egypt, if they failed at their task, they were sent to work on Shrek.
Really?
As a punishment. If you were an artist and you're working on the Prince of Egypt, if you did not do your task successfully or you caused a problem, you were sent as punishment to work on Shrek.
What was difficult, hard, challenging about Shrek? It was a consequence for poor performance.
Because the animation style was completely different. So the animation for Prince of Egypt was like the 2D to 3D modeling with the 3D rotoscoping that they'd used in like Tarzan and stuff. So it's more like original watercolors and stuff like that. While Shrek was more conventional 3D modeling that they could it was new and they could work it out and make it look different. Okay. But then Shrek was a roaring success in 2001, and then paved the way for all future 3D modeling things.
See, this is what puzzles me. Why not do something like that? Why Train Your Dragon is relatively recent in the whole. Was it DreamWorks?
Yeah, DreamWorks. Yeah. My suspicion, and I'd love to hear people's comments on this, is that because it's targeted at children, the first one came out in 2010, second one came out in 2014, and the third one came out in 2019. And they had lots of mini TV shows that aired on Netflix in between all that. Yeah. So when the last one came out in 2019, you've had a 5 year, nearly 6 year gap between the last one starting and the new one starting. So I think you had a generation of kids that grew up with all the How to Train Your Dragons and all the TV series. They've now aged up. You have a new batch of children in, and you need something for them. Studios are less likely, as current trends have shown in TVs and movies, to bank on something original. So they'd rather revisit something that's old that they can redo. So I think that's why they've brought that back.
Do you have any strong opinions about this, Cam?
I'm just flicking through a list of DreamWorks animation films, seeing which one I would want to be live action. I think the B movie is jumping out at me. I think that's for a live action.
Good shout. I would absolutely watch that.
Have you seen the cut of the B movie where every time they say B, it increases speed?
Oh yeah.
So they increase the speed of the film by
as in incrementally throughout the movie?
Every time the word B is said.
Only takes about 4 minutes to watch the whole video. It's great.
I will rabbit hole it later.
I think that was a post Shrek one as well, I believe. I think that came out 2002.
Was it last week that we were? Because I was binge watching Lost. Started my binge watch of Lost last week, where we were just talking about. I can't remember whether it was you, Cam, or whether it was Tim Baker, formerly of our parish, who was saying that the quality of series, however many years ago, are we talking 10 years ago, 20 years ago for Lost?
20.
It's a long time. It's very different to this almost regurgitation of superhero stories, fairy tale stories, now the DreamWorks stories. There seems to be, it's almost painful now. I've heard various actors talk about the loss that is going on in Hollywood where there's not original story being told. It's not that it can't be that we've run out of stories to tell.
I mean, from a visual effects point of view, if you compare visual effects from Disney movies like 2005-ish to the effects of it now, 2005 we had Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, with the appearance of Davy Jones and that was just amazing and so realistic.
Yeah.
And then you look
Gorgeous.
to now, and you look to like the random ethereal floating head from For Love and Thunder. Same kind of thing, really. But even then, I am noticing the artwork behind Cameron right now. Is that, I believe, just behind your head? Is that the Lion King?
Yes.
It's not. But Becca
I've
always
been
thinks it
doing
is.
that for 3 years. That's all from the Lion King, surely. It's
Oh
not.
man, we've been
Oh
guessing.
no, that's Easter.
This is Jesus, yeah. I've got other nerdy credentials here, and
Yeah.
Wars scenes, and then I've got my sport further up actually that you can't see. But I've got Andy Murray and the Middlesbrough Riverside Stadium further up. But another.
I'm so glad that says something about Tim and my brain. For those commenting about sports related stuff, we'll come to you, and I'll read out the comments once we've done our geeky quiz. Do you think we're ready to move on to the geeky quiz?
Yes. How competitive are you, Cam, at quizzes?
Oh, extremely, yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do this. Are you ready? Oh, hang on. Where is my Quizalicious? Okay. So this is all sport orientated questions as a nod and affirmation of Cameron's geekiness. So question number 1, and it comes with a bonus point. What is the most expensive women's football transfer of all time? And the bonus question, and how much was that for?
I don't know. I know it was Kira Walsh at one point when she went to Barcelona. That was the record, but I think that probably has been surpassed because that was maybe 3-4 years ago now. Sam Kerr was very pricey when she went to Chelsea, but again, it's a bit outdated. Yeah, I'll go Kira Walsh to Barcelona, and I think that was. I don't think they've topped $1 million yet for women's football. I think that was in the hundreds of thousands. I go like 800,000 Kira Walsh to Barcelona, but I think that's wrong.
Happy to write something down?
I can write something down. I don't know, sadly, much about women's football. I'll put a number and put a team to a team.
Okay.
And go that way.
Okay. Question number 2. In which year did Roger Federer win his first Wimbledon title? In which year?
It's gonna be a trick question. He probably won his first one as a doubles or something. Becca's sneaky like that.
I'm not going to be able to tell you any more information other than the year.
I think it was
That
his
helps.
first Grand Slam that he won. I don't think he won any different Grand Slams before Wimbledon. It's either 2002 or 2003. I'm going to go 2002.
Are you writing down your answers? You need to write down your answers.
I've written down my answers.
Am I meant to be writing them down rather than saying them?
You can, like, we'll say them out
loud. Question number 3. Frankie Dettori won 7 out of 7 races at which horse racing course in 1995?
Don't know my horse racing. That's another one I could have said earlier. Sports that I'm not into.
It's not going to be that one.
I've always wanted to go and get out. I'd go to horse racing for the champagne and hat wearing. I do watch Ladies' Day every year.
I know someone who went to Ladies' Day in their wedding dress and came third.
Oh, that's quite impressive. Who did they lose to?
I don't know.
In the hope.
Bridesmaids.
Right.
I would want the bridesmaid to be in them.
Question number 4. In which sport do teams compete to win the Stanley Cup?
I think we may have mentioned it already this evening.
We have mentioned it.
And question number 5. The Fosby flop is a technique used in which sports? And you can have a bonus point if you can explain why this is related to international development.
This is an analogy we have used in our work.
It is indeed.
I won't be able to get the bonus point on that one, but I do know the answer.
Okay. That means that you did not use All We Can's Harvest Resource 2023. It was last year's, wasn't it? I love saying the Fosby flop. The word flop and Fosby together. It's really satisfying. Okay, the answer is indeed Kira Walsh was transferred from Man City to Barcelona September 2022. She was transferred for the paltry sum of £400,000.
That's a lot less than I had. I had like 890.
Mm.
Yeah, still the right order of magnitude. I feel that's
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge amount of money. It's just comparatively what men's transfers are not like that. Question number 2. Roger Federer won his first Wimbledon title. I'm afraid I don't know what that title was in 2006.
Oh,
really.
I put 99 because I thought he started young and got something in like a doubles tournament or something like that.
Frankie Dettori won 7 out of 7 races at Ascot in.
I said Aintree.
I put Cheltenham.
The right starting letter.
It is ice hockey that teams compete to win the Stanley Cup.
Massive,
Fun fact.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So they have rings on it, and they put everyone who's in the team on. And when a ring gets full and the trophy gets too big, they retire one of the rings off the trophy and put it into the Ice Hockey Hall of Fame. And when the St. Louis Blues won it in 2019, the commentator, because they were quite happy, they got the trophy and there was a lot of swearing, and the commentator had to every now and then go, "And we apologize for the exuberant language from the players right now," just constantly.
Fabulous. And the Fosby flop is a technique that it was or is used in high jump. Cameron, can you remember what our focus was from Harvest last year, explaining there was a shift in language, wasn't it, and shift in approach?
To talk about flipping our perspective, don't we? That in development, we've done it in a certain way for a very long time, and people can't imagine an alternative to kind of top-down imposing solutions on local communities. But we've realised actually we can flip our perspective and do it in a totally different way.
For a much better result, wasn't it? Is that but everybody did it in a certain way, and that's how they competed until someone did it in a better way, got better scores, and then everybody shifted the way they were. Yeah, that's roughly how I remembered it. That sounds like a wonderful resource that we should all use at Harvest. And that is the end of the quiz. How did you do? I didn't keep track of your answers.
It'll be 7 out of 5 if you got all the questions right and the bonus points.
Yes.
I got 2.
2 out of 7.
I think 5
what
out of 7.
From this experience?
As the sports addict, Cam, I would hope you get a high score.
How
did you do, Cam?
I think 5 out of 7 or 3 out of 5 on the basic basic points.
3 out of 5 on the basic one. It's not bad going. Thank you very much. Well done for your quizalicious participation. So do have a think if you are listening. Stephen Jones got highest score ever. Remarkable. You see, we're luring people out of the woodwork. I celebrate your win with you, Stephen. Apparently we have lots of echo and feedback. Thank you, Lydia. I don't know what we can do about that. So for those listening, if you have tolerated this until now, thank you for sticking with it. We will sort out next week. But for now, shall we move on to our sporty conversation with C. Hume? I'm just going to pull up to the conversation that was had in chat. So Tom Osborne said more than happy to help Cameron get into rugby. He's a player, referee, and spectator. For him, football is the sport I've never got into. That was a weird emphasis in that sentence. American football is better at college level than pro level. Miss Rebel speaking. Also support, is it NOLA Saints?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And Stephen Jones responded with the merits of Springbok home squads, that's hard to say, could spark a lengthy and very geeky discussion, and you know where to do that, gentlemen. Like you, I struggle to get American football, especially given that there is very little contact between the foot and the ball. The age-old conversation of how can you call it football when you don't use your foot. Down to Tom. I'm not commenting on the box as a Scot. Box as a Scot. That's my mouth is getting all dribbly. I do get American football. Studied stateside. It's association football. I've not really got into. Okay, so Cameron, what is your first? We start super duper early. What's the first time you realised sport was something that you could get excited about?
Yes, I was trying to think of this just before we came on. I think my earliest sporting memory is going to my first Middlesbrough game. So I'm a big Middlesbrough Football Club fan. It's the team that my family supports. And the first time I went to a game was when we were in what was then called the UEFA Cup. It's now called the Europa League. But Middlesbrough, little town in the northeast, had qualified for a European competition. So kind of my family, who their interest in football had lapsed a little bit, was a bit reignited by this excitement around Middlesbrough getting into Europe. And they took me along to one of I think it was the third round of the UEFA Cup. And that was my first experience of live sport, was going. And I was just totally overawed by the size of the stadium, the number of people, the noise. So I remember I said to my mum, kind of, "Oh, how am I supposed to hear the commentary with all these people around?" Thinking, because my only experience of watching football had been on the TV, and I just assumed that the commentary would be live when it was in person. And I think, that made me fall in love with football at that point. And then I think probably 3 months later, Middlesbrough got to the final of the UEFA Cup that year. And lost in the final. And that was the first time I cried as a result of sport, having only really got into football a few months prior. Having got to the final, I was so excited that Middlesbrough might win a European competition. They only lost in the final 4-0.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Without meaning to, pick at old wounds, who was it against?
The finals against Seville. They had lots of very good players at that point who went on to do very well. Jesus Navas was in that team, and Dani Alves, I think. So it was a good squad that we lost against. But and then that was the peak of Middlesbrough Football Club, and I've been supporting them ever since. And we've never been anywhere near that kind of level. But that was what set my expectations. So my expectations of Middlesbrough's quality were set in 2006, and they've never quite lived up to that since. But for some reason, I'm still sticking with them. But I think, that was the year that got me into sport in terms of its, ridiculous highs and very low lows. The other thing in that UEFA Cup run, both in the quarterfinal and in the semi-final, Middlesbrough came back from 3-0 down and 4-0 down on aggregate in the quarterfinal and then the semi-final. Great comebacks are such an important part of sport, and I think that, again, expectation management. I was like, well, it must always be like this. We just come back on impossible odds to come back and win. So I think that was probably the origin story of me getting into sport back in 2006.
And it's interesting what's kind of going on in terms of what took you in, that there'd been that, obviously watching television at home and watching the sport at home, where you had that expectation of commentator, but to remember that moment where it's then live, surrounded by the size, noise, people, it almost makes it's that visceral engagement with the sport so much more. So you then went on eventually to do your master's in journalism, and that had a significant sport element, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. So as part of my final project, I covered the Tokyo Olympics in 2021. Basically used my degree as an excuse to watch absolutely every hour of Olympics coverage. That was good fun, and kind of I've not ultimately gone into journalism. My interest in journalism had come out of my love for sport and kind of vaguely wanting that to become a career in some way. That if I could watch sport and write about it for a living, then that would have been great fun. And yeah, that was.
We're glad you didn't, for the record.
Yes, and I'm very glad that I'm doing it all we can at the moment, and I still use plenty of those skills. Yes, Tokyo Olympics 2021 was a good time, and I got some really good access, got to interview some athletes. It turns out no one really checks who you are. Like, you can just, I just asked Team GB, can I get on the press list? And then they started sending me all this embargoed information, and they gave me emails of athletes and things. It was like, oh, I'm literally just a student, but fine, thank you.
That information is out on the internet, folks.
We neither endorse the idea of going up to random, reasonably well-funded sporting organisations just asking them for information. Unless you're doing
still sending me. I still get embargoed team release stuff now, and I don't leak
Team GB, perhaps you could look into it.
We can recommend a good GDPR officer to talk about that.
Was there anything that you noticed where your interest in sport became more structured, with having to look at it from a academic, journalistic point of view, that took any of the joy out of it? Were there any points where the interest waned because of your more academic looking at it?
I think there's a certain amount of being in the moment that you lose, like particularly, while I was watching those Olympics, I was thinking about what I was going to have to write about or what data I was going to have to gather. Yeah. And so you're kind of living in the future rather than just enjoying spectacle in the moment. Which I think is probably one of the reasons I'm vaguely glad that I'm not doing that now, because I think particularly with sports writing, there's a lot of pressure of like submitting your copy on the final whistle kind of thing. You're thinking of what the narrative is, or what the storyline of the whole game or the whole event is before it's even concluded. Those kind of assumptions and prejudices probably hinder the enjoyment in the moment. But it makes you all more analytical.
That's interesting.
See things.
Because it is. I think I was fortunate enough to be as a pre-teens in Stockport in Manchester, so we kind of were sandwiched by Manchester City fans, Stockport County fans, and Man United fans, and schools often took quite a lot of advantage of the location of being so close to such large stadiums that we'd just get free tickets to go and visit for whatever reason. And there was something about how present you are. I remember going to football matches. I remember going to see the Cubs when we went to Chicago. I remember going and seeing Norwich City, because that is the family team that teaches us humility. That is the only reason we watch it as a Puritan family, to just learn humility and disappointment in life. And there's something about the multi-layered things. It's not just that you are watching the ball. It's not just an investment in the outcomes. There's something about the journey that you're going on. So what is it? What if you could pull out particular things as you're watching, as you're preparing to watch a bit of sport? What are you anticipating experiencing as you go, and then as you're watching, now that you're no longer having to analyze it for a future outcome?
Yeah, I think I'm always anticipating a win. I think I'm one of these like hopelessly optimistic sports fans that even, and I mean one of my loves is tennis, and Andy Murray is probably my favorite sports person of all time. And I think part of my love for him and why I always enjoyed watching him is that it genuinely did feel like it was never over. He had so many matches in his career when he was two sets to break down and somehow came back to win. And so that feeling of it's not over till it's over, and kind of thinking, yeah, we're still in this. In terms of, while I'm watching, I still always think that there's a chance. I'd never leave a football game before full time. It doesn't matter how many goals Middlesbrough are down. I'm always like, no, it's still a chance. Stranger things have happened. And I think that's always the case with sport. There's always something stranger that's happened at some point in history. And I love reading stats in history of sport of like, crazy results that happen. And that makes you think that, there's always some hope. And, if we're talking about faith and geekery as well, I think some kind of experience of hope and how we process that is one of the crossovers there. But I think, sport is a place where I can cultivate hope and see it dashed many a time as well.
So like a sporting journalist question from me. So like I'm thinking about how the story around teams and how it's been publicized and reported on over my lifetime has very much changed from I can't remember when I was younger a load of like really key influential players. Like I can like one or two of them, but then nowadays like you kind of know every player. Like I think like the Olympics last year, or like the various memes that came out and the really heartfelt moments from from various competitors. I want to say I think it was like the North Korean. There was a gymnast who was on the podium and looked up at the two competitors next to her and was like, and then she was like, oh, and like that kind of like meme in the reporting. It's actually the really deep personal kind of like loving the person and getting to know them and seeing their character come through more than known as like they're a very good player, or the Eddie the Eagle kind of they were very bad but came out of nowhere kind of thing. It's that like how have you seen like that change, and do you think that's a good change in reporting of sport?
Yeah, I think a lot of media kind of catching up with recognizing that all of sport is ultimately about human stories, and kind of the ultimate expression of that is stuff like Drive to Survive on Netflix that has done so well and has increased interest in Formula One. Whether that's in some ways gone too far now, that actually I worry that in some cases, particularly in F1, which I've lost interest in slightly recently, that the sport is just a sideshow for the documentary about the sport, and that ultimately the racing itself is just a vestibule for some interpersonal drama. That I think that can sometimes take it too far. That I still love the sport itself and the actual competition itself and the format, and I think the drama of the sport itself, even though the human stories are also great. I think that's been the big shift, the kind of proliferation of sports documentaries and interest in the personalities is a bit of a shift recently, but has its benefits and downsides as any cultural shift does. But and
if it sells screen time, then they'll keep doing it, and they'll push the limit of what that really is. If we circle back to that hope and the kind of the willingness to, and I always see hope as this kind of vulnerable place where you're willing to be disappointed. You're willing to go in a place and essentially have failure and disappointment be part of your story today. Do you notice in how you approach life, how you approach relationships, or work that you need to do, hope spilling over, that belief that good could still come out of it? Does that spill over into other ways that you interact with life and the world?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? That I think in some ways sport is a really safe space to feel all the feels, as we sometimes say.
Yeah,
Like you have the whole range of human emotions that you can experience while watching a sporting event or following a sports team, and you feel those incredibly deeply. That ultimately, at the end of the day, it is a sport, and that's a safe space to feel that. Yeah, maybe that does then spill out into life, that you've experienced that, and you're a little bit more resilient to disappointment as a result of being repeatedly disappointed. I don't know. There must be some kind of studies into that. I'm not sure. But then I guess the flip side of that is when sport dictates your mood, right? And that
yes,
my team has won, then I'm happy for the rest of the day, and that spills out in a really positive way. But if your team
yeah.
loses, then it can put you in a bad mood. And the worst expression of that is the stats that we know about, domestic violence going up when
Yeah.
teams lose and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I hope that on the whole, it does have a positive effect in terms of
There is
feeling
I
emotions.
had a lot of 15, 16-year-olds at my house for Halloween, a lot more than I necessarily agreed to. And there was this bizarre phenomenon of about 10 boys had eventually gathered just in the kitchen, and they almost couldn't talk to each other without chanting. There's and I had to come downstairs. I've got a 5-year-old neighbour. There's a difference between party noise and football stadium boys chanting and singing very loudly together, and that kind of the drive of what's going on. I've heard the kind of critique of worship and people's experience of singing together is no different to people singing together in a football match, or that kind of crowd mentality. Do you think there is merit in people just coming together and allowing that to happen? Is there something beneficial to humanity orientating themselves in the same direction, even if it isn't towards a higher purpose or being or experience, but just the act of being human together? Do you think there's something in that?
Yeah, I think almost certainly. And we know all the benefits about singing together in terms of like well-being and mental health. Actually, that's a really good outlet for that, for people who wouldn't do that in any other context, I think. I mean, one thing I will say, we talked about American sports and British sports, that British sporting chants are infinitely better than any American sporting chant. I went to the basketball the other week in Newcastle, and even here, the basketball games, defense, defense, defense is the only thing you can chant for the whole of the basketball game. It's so uninventive and boring. Whereas you go to a football match and teams have very, very niche songs about opposing teams' players, and they're littered with profanity, but at least it's sarcastic and it's British and it's fun, isn't it? I think it gives that sense of place and community. And you mentioned boys at a party. Like, I think it is an excellent conversational tool as well, right? Like the amount of strangers that I've connected with over sport, when it feels like there's not another topic you can immediately land on. I think it's obviously it's not universal, but to have a vaguely universal topic.
And there's something about the it's not a common enemy, but a linchpin that unites us, especially in very divided times where politics are the politics that they are, where the economy is what it is. To have moments where we just choose to focus on one thing, sing it out, chant it out, move as one. There must be I'm sure there's studies in it, but it feels like it's dipping into the spirituality side, the faith side, over the just pure geekery.
Yeah, it can be a genuinely uniting force, can't it? Like, I'm not one of these people who thinks that politics has to stay out of sport entirely, and sometimes, politics and sport are intrinsically linked and overlap. But something like the Olympics does feel like a genuinely hopeful, uniting force of people from every nation just trying their best at something, and usually being incredibly supportive and encouraging of one another, and it's a place for seeing the best of humanity and what we can be. It's a hopeful thing, I think.
Tim, do you have anything you want to probe Cameron about in relation to that? I'm just conscious we're going into the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned a little bit about the difference between like the UK and British sport. So like when I was out in the States, there was like I did fantasy football in the UK, and I tried it in the States. Oh boy, do the States take it hyper seriously. Like I was advised, don't do it unless you got 3 years worth of stats saved up that you've done yourself, so you know exactly what you're doing with your team. But I think that kind of like feeds into some of the stuff you've been mentioning, like the idea of actually having a focused community coming together around something, even if it's something like, hey, we're sitting down playing fantasy football, and our player did really well this week. No, they're injured. What do we do? Kind of thing. But like, do you, Cameron, track any stats yourself of anything to do with sports?
I'm a big stats man, and I do fantasy Premier League, I do fantasy NFL, and these are things that you can spend your whole week researching if you like. Actually, my wife is even more on it with stats for fantasy. We're in the same fantasy leagues, and she is sadly beating me in both of them at the moment.
There's a TV show called The League. Have you seen it?
No.
I heartily recommend you watch it. It's effectively a load of guys who grew up and they started playing fantasy football, and they do it every single year for the same trophy. But there's literally a couple in it where this guy's wife is 100% better at playing and doing all the stats, to the point where she says, "Look, I'm just running his team. Let me in the actual league." So I think there's like 7 seasons on Amazon, I think, or something. But it goes really deep into that side of the culture of it.
Yeah. But I think stats are just another whole world. And I think, another thing I love about sport is just there are immeasurable depths that you can explore in almost any sport, that if you keep diving, there's always more there. And I think, particularly with cricket, I think cricket's the best sport for stats. Just that there's batting stats, bowling stats, fielding stats for each player who's batted and bowled, and then team stats, and across 3 different formats. There's just so much. And I think with cricket, in every match something happens for the first time usually, or there's always records broken constantly. That's one of the things I love particularly about cricket as a format that lends itself to statistical analysis and fun with stats. Love that.
And who, if you have one, who's your favourite commentator and why?
Okay, this takes us back to my origin story of 2006 UEFA Cup Middlesbrough run. There's a commentator on BBC Tees called Alistair Brownlee, not the triathlete, but he has so many iconic lines from that particular run. So I think when we won the semi-final, and these words are emblazoned on the side of roads near the Riverside Stadium, it's party, party, party all the way to Eindhoven, which is where the final was taking place. Everyone round my house for Parmo was the iconic commentary line as the full-time whistle blew. But there's certain clips from that run that get played a lot by Middlesbrough fans as kind of harking back to the peak time in our history. He sadly died of bowel cancer, I think it was, a few years ago. But he's a Middlesbrough legend, Alistair Brownlee, and an excellent commentator.
Yeah.
It will not
And
be
also
told.
then like brings in that shared community and that shared history that you all had at that moment, and you bring forward, and the new generations that come in can adds to that great storied history of Middlesbrough. And long may those days come back round again.
Absolutely.
Just to kind of see us out, Cam, knowing you to be a person of faith who has a faith in God, you're also a Methodist, a practicing Methodist. Do you see any parallels or any way that you're kind of deep diving into sport and how you enjoy that parallels with what it is that you're doing as you engage with either faith practices or kind of the feelings and the behaviors that faith might otherwise bring to your table?
Yeah, I guess in terms of what I've just been saying about there being depths that you can't stop exploring, I think that's something that applies to faith as well. But I think from studying theology, one of the things I loved when I did that was kind of realizing that, there is so much more here that I can't ever possibly know all of. I think in my kind of teenage cockiness, I thought I'd vaguely covered everything there was to know about Christianity. I think I ticked it off. And I think studying it made me realize that there are, you're never going to be able to know it all. And there's always more to learn. And I think that I love that about sport as well. And I think just the power of collective experience as well. I think the difference between watching a winning goal or whatever it might be at home alone in front of the TV, still a great feeling, totally unmatched to doing that in community, in a stadium, in person, I might say as well. And I think that certainly applies to my faith as well, that the power of collective experience and collective worship, other people with a similar vision. I think
Thank you.
sort of a crossover.
I think that was the best summing up of a geeky with the faithy that we've had for a while. We will have Geeky Gallery next week. We'll tackle on what we had. If you are super keen and you want to know what was going to be in Geeky Gallery, do join us in Discord. The link will be in various places in order for you to do that. But until then, Tim, any final words?
Season finale of Arcane Season 2 is this week. If you haven't watched it, please catch up.
Oh, do not give spoilers. That would be bad and of the devil to really bring it home. But until next time, we love you. Geek safely and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.